Alright, today we are going to be checking out behind the scenes secrets in the world of WWE. WWE is obviously a massive show. They've got to do these live shows every single week for a massive audience, millions worldwide. And there obviously is a lot that goes into making these shows come to life and making them run as smoothly and as professionally as possible. So there's a video here coming from the Sportster, which I'm going to react to, and it's called WWE Behind the Scenes Secrets That Happen All the Time. Now there will be someone talking in this video, so I'm gonna be quiet while he's talking and then pause the video and then say my piece, because sometimes with these videos I tend to just talk over the person, and from a viewer's perspective, that's obviously not what you want to be hearing, because you're trying to hear this guy, and then I start speaking and you're like, whoa, no, I'm trying to listen to this guy, not you, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to him now, and then this guy's still speaking, and it's like, whoa! But yeah, I am very interested in behind the scenes stuff. With any TV show, I'm very interested to see how it all comes to life, so this is going to be a very intriguing video for me, myself, and I, and probably for you guys watching as well, so let's do this. Let's frickin' do this, boys and girls.
But there is a lot of work that goes into a WWE show. We may be concerned with what we see in front of our eyes, but there are a ton of things happening behind the scenes that we don't even take into account.
Very, very true.
WWE behind the scenes secrets that are happening
15.
all the time. Here's a secret we'll let you in on. We're going to be dropping a quiz question on you later on, so be prepared in the video. Don't forget
I'll be
to hit
ready.
the subscribe button and join the notification squad.
I'm not going to do that.
Manipulation. While SmackDown and Raw are for the most part live TV shows, there are parts of the shows that are pre-taped. But not to worry, there's no chance that WWE would manipulate those segments, right? Fat chance. These edits can take the form of retakes, piping in sound effects, reshooting entrances, or even editing out portion of the match.
Exposed!
There's even been times where entire matches were redone because they were filled with botches. Looking at you, Sin Cara. The most obvious of these edits can be seen with WCW piping in fake Goldberg chants to pump up his cred. WWE plays with fans' reactions as well, as they'll mute boos against characters people are supposed to cheer. That means Roman Reigns.
That's so true. That's so true. I've heard of this case quite a lot, where they're not getting the right reaction from the crowd, so they just fake it and throw in fake cheers, etc. And that's a bit shady, But it is understandable why they would do that. They obviously gave up with Roman Reigns because the fans just were not having him back in the day. I say back in the day, literally 2 years ago. And this is very interesting because they might do something like this with the Roman Reigns and Goldberg match at WrestleMania, because that match is already being slated. No one wants it. So when it comes down to it, there's going to be a ton of boos and a lot of negative chants, I feel like. So they might edit out the crowd in some parts with that match, but we'll see. I don't know if they really do that anymore though, because I have seen some matches which have really negative chants recently, but they don't really care that much anymore. They don't actually try to. Maybe they just got caught out and they were like, okay, we're gonna not do that anymore. So maybe that's not a thing anymore, but still, back in the day at least, they used to obviously mute the crowd sometimes, throw in sound effects that they want. That's a bit dodgy, but yeah, there's a first secret.
Is key.
Timing is key.
Exhausting watching a 3-hour wrestling show. Imagine being the guy in charge of keeping time of the entire show. Sure,
yeah,
you would get paid for it, but I guess that would make it bearable. Anyway, timing of a show is incredibly important. Anyone remember how much of a flustercluck the Goldberg versus DDP match at Halloween Havoc was? The show went over its time frame, then the match wasn't shown, and then WCW had to give a pay-per-view match on free TV the next night. While that specific example is not an issue with the WWE Network now, timing is still very important.
It's
to make
crucial.
Sure segments don't run too long, commercial breaks occur at the right time, and so on. The man responsible for all of this? Billy Kidman. How's that for a random name? The camera
really? What? Well, yeah, that is very true. Wrestlers essentially are always under a time limit. It's not a time limit that the viewers can see, but, they've got to have strict time slots to fit every segment in, so that would be a very complicated process to get right every single week. I can't even imagine trying to do that job. And Billy Kidman apparently does that job. Is he correct? I know that he was a wrestler back in the day, of course, but that's interesting. I'm not sure how anyone could really do that. He must have some help. There can't just be one person dealing with the time limits. So, I mean, there might be, I don't know, but it is a very tough job by the sounds of things, and something that I would never want to do ever in my life.
If you've ever seen
The
DX's
camera angle
comedy
is
skit where they
everything.
go inside WWE's camera truck, you can see just how insane it was. That was in 2006. We can only imagine how crazy it's gotten 11 years later. How
Damn!
to shoot WWE shows has come down to science. They know each wrestler's moveset, so they know how to film depending on who's in a match. Of course, that means they know the 5 moves of doom of each wrestler, so they can shoot it perfectly. On the performer side of things, they are always sure to stare to the side of the ring right of the entrance ramp. This is known as the hard cam, which is actually one of the biggest adjustments for indie wrestlers to
There's
make
so
when
much
they
that
get
goes
to
on
NXT.
here.
If you can't play to the camera, it doesn't matter how much flippy stuff you do. Referees are the secret
That's
weapon.
actually mad as well. Like, camera work is obviously very important because you're streaming the show live to a worldwide audience and you've got to get every move right with each camera. Everything's just got to capture everything, and it's all, oh my god, I can't even imagine. I can remember a situation off the top of my head with a wrestler that was not good with the cameras. He faced the wrong camera when he was celebrating. I think it was the Great Khali. Yeah, it was the Great Khali. So he was facing the wrong camera celebrating, and then someone told him, face the other way, face the other way. So then he had to turn around and go, rah, to the actual camera that was meant to be on him, you know? So, again, camera work is crucial.
Referees are the secret weapon. For those who realize that we have no chance in hell of having the physical attribution required for pro wrestling,
Hitler?
we think of other jobs that we can take in the business. Maybe some of us can be managers, maybe writers, or heck, why not a referee? Yeah, what's so hard about that? You pretend to care about the rules, you slap the mat a few times, what's the big deal, right? Actually, there's a huge number of tasks that casual fans don't even think about. WWE
no.
referees have to relay messages from the backstage area, time out the match, telling them when there's a commercial break, etc.
Oh,
If that
that's
wasn't
true.
enough, they also have to set up the ring and act appropriately to sell a particular finish to an
Oh,
audience.
yeah.
Think Earl Hebner back in the day with his intense slow counts, and you'll see what we mean. Professional writers. Back in the
Referees
old
have a
days,
massive part to
McMahon
play.
and Pat Patterson sat around McMahon's swimming pool to write out the shows, which was the style of the time. Eventually, they added Gerald Briscoe, but as the company grew, more and more writers were brought on to the job. With more than 20 writers on staff, the average tenure of them being 6 weeks, writers are assigned to certain wrestlers and work with them exclusively. Rarely do these writers have wrestling backgrounds, instead possessing backgrounds in soap opera and film. There's also been a couple of celebrity writers on staff, including Freddie Prinze Jr. of Mass Effect and Dragon Age fame. Comedian and frequent Joe Rogan Experience guest Tony Hinchcliffe also had a job offer with WWE, but turned them down on the basis that he didn't want to move to Connecticut. He also called the job interview creepy. We can't imagine why. To color, no more.
Okay, so yet again, we're getting some more backstage role information. The writer's obviously in charge of creating the storylines, coming up with the storylines. That's what they do. But it's interesting to know that one writer will get assigned to a wrestler, like specifically, that'll be their main focus. So that's interesting. And they only really have writers 6 weeks at a time, then they get new ones, I think he said there. So there's like a, there's a very recurring process here. Some writers come in, some writers go out, more writers come in, some go out, and it's just, that's how it works apparently. So yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, it's not necessarily impossible to see some blood in WWE programming. It's as rare as seeing a two-man commentary booth. Even when it does happen, you can only see it live as in a highlight package that is always shown in black and white.
Mad.
Any times that you do see a wrestler bleed, you can be certain that the wrestler didn't use a razor blade like in the old days.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's done the hard way, which means they simply get hit in just the right way to cause bleeding.
Exactly.
Most times when you see blood, you will quickly see a gloved referee or a medic stop a match to patch them up. Sometimes, when there's a paper cut, it's a little paranoid. Other times, when it's Randy Orton at SummerSlam 2016, it's definitely justified. Scripted promos.
Yeah, that's something I knew. Like, obviously, blood is, when someone bleeds these days, that's just accidental and it's real blood, For some reason, a lot of people think that they use fake blood, which is just crazy. But yeah, back in the day, they had to actually cut themselves open when the camera wasn't on them, which sounds very, very painful and something I would not be too comfortable with doing. Like, imagine just cutting yourself open, like in the forehead. That doesn't sound too pleasant. So yeah, when someone bleeds, something's gone slightly wrong. Like with Beth Phoenix at the Royal Rumble, that's the most recent event I can think of with blood. Her head got busted open at some point, and yeah, she just had to continue. The referees would have obviously kept a close eye on her, but it happens. It's a very physical sport, obviously. When you're pretending to have a fight, which is essentially what they're doing, you're obviously going to connect a lot of times, so sometimes blood will just come out, and that's the bottom line.
In order to truly give a proper critique of WWE's scripted promos, we have to understand why they do them in the first place. Believe it or not, they don't do it to drain the
Harry
souls
Potter.
out of their employees like some kind of corporate vampire. Instead, they do it to keep their show schedule going as planned. In the past, wrestlers were given little tidbits to go on and then expand those. Problem was, the wrestlers often went way too long and threw off the time frame of
Yeah, you
other
would do.
segments on the show. Look at whenever The Rock comes back as an example. Sure, we don't mind, because he's The Rock. But imagine if someone else went as long as he did. We would have to send Kane out there to cut them off, like he did to Mr. T at WrestleMania 30.
That's
the
true.
devil in
The
your
Rock
ear.
can talk for ages, and I'll be hooked.
In your ear. Anyone who's read
The
Mick
devil
Foley's
in your
books,
ear?
Countdown to Lockdown, will know just how hard it is to have Vince McMahon screaming in your ear. But for the millions of people who didn't read Foley's lowest-selling autobiography, let's catch you up to speed. With a big
I
belly
didn't.
voice that can make Arnold feel small, McMahon intimidates his announcers on the nightly basis. He tells them to emphasize certain moments, make sure they don't dare utter the words pro
I've heard about
wrestling,
this.
and sometimes are even fed direct lines to say. For as much as we like to rag on Michael Cole and the rest of the commentators, what should we expect? McMahon's hostile style has led Foley and Joey Styles to speak out about it. We wonder how many other quality announcers McMahon has scared away. Hey, surprise! Here's that quiz question we were talking
Wait,
about.
that's actually crazy. Can you imagine sitting there trying to do your job, just commentating a match, and Mr. McMahon's like, "What are you doing? You should not be saying things like that." Or, "Make sure you say this, make sure you say that." Like, I couldn't deal with that pressure. And yes, he also said there, Mr. McMahon hates the term pro wrestling. It's not pro wrestling, it's sports entertainment, which I don't really see why that's such a big issue, but that's been a big thing for years now. Anyway, time for the quiz question.
Right before
What's
wrestlers
this?
enter the stage, they wait in a position behind the curtain. What is this position called and why? The Danger Room. As we showed
That position is called the wait a second position. No, the hold back position. No, I don't know, honestly. What is that called? Let me know in the comments down below.
As we showed
The
in our
Danger
recent
Room.
videos, we love to mix in some superheroes into pro wrestling whenever we can. Now, while WWE doesn't have a holographic room to train in like the X-Men, they have to do with training in another way. Live events may not appear that eventful to some people, but they're missing out if they don't go. Oftentimes, live events act as a laboratory for wrestlers with a match coming up to try out
Yeah.
certain things and see if they would work for a big pay-per-view match. Sometimes they stumble on something great, other times not. The fact remains, though, that if you wanted to sneak a peek on an upcoming WWE feud, chances are you can see it in a live event near you.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Wrestlers actually do talk about that quite a lot. Like, that's their way of training, essentially, live events. They can kind of take things a bit more easier, try out new things, and that's kind of their way of practicing their craft, you know?
A match layout. A question that I'm sure longtime fans get from people new to pro wrestling is how matches are planned out. Contrary to popular belief, entire matches aren't rehearsed beforehand. That isn't to
Yeah.
say there is no planning beforehand, though. For the most part, wrestlers are given leeway to work their magic for the meat of the match. The finish of the match, however, is usually determined by agents backstage. Currently, two of those agents working in the company are Road Dogg and Dean Malenko, both veterans of the
Okay.
Monday Night Wars. It's up to these guys
Okay.
that matches are timed out and finished when they're supposed to. Side note, it took the combined minds Pat Patterson, Jamie Noble, Joey Mercury, and Michael Hayes to concoct the awful 2015 Royal Rumble match. How do 4 people fail? So
Yikes.
badly? Real injuries. Oh, WWE is fake, bro. Screams that one jackass in the comment
great
section
one.
who thinks
There's
they
a
deserve a
iconic
gold
meme
star
from
for
him.
that comment. In reality, performers get injured all the time, and when that happens, WWE needs to be ready to ensure their performers can go. Whereas in the old days, the
Yeah.
best medicine for performers was called get up and get back to work, wrestlers now have much more protection. Every time you see a
That's
massive
good.
spot during a match, see as a referee or a medic checks out a performer. It ain't just for show. There's also a
Yeah.
little secret to see if something is really
hand.
wrong. When a referee or medic throws up an X, they're not
X,
cosplaying
yes.
as DX. That's a sign that a wrestler is actually hurt.
That's
now, you
bad.
know, getting paid. Just in case we
And then
forget.
isn't there like, the referee goes down and I think he grabs the wrestler's hand, so that I think when the wrestler squeezes, that means he's alright. It might be the other way around, but I think that's also a way to know if the wrestler is alright after doing a dangerous move, because they can't just say to the referee in front of the cameras like, "Oh, I'm alright, you know? But yeah, when that X goes up, that's when something's gone a bit wrong. and they need some backup.
WWE superstars aren't falling to their backs on a daily basis just for the hell of it. They're doing it as their career. That means they have to get paid, which they do, but maybe not as much as you'd think. Let's take the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, as an example. Based off reports, Styles is reportedly taking a base salary of $500,000. Like most WWE wrestlers, though, their base income is supplemented by autograph signings, bonuses, and merchandise sales. Keep in mind that Styles is one of the highest profile stars in the company, but most performers make way less than that. For the work they do, we would have hoped these men and women were paid more. But alas, WWE is only a multi-million-dollar company breaking the rules.
I mean, $500K ain't bad, plus whatever sales he gets from merch and that. But $500K for one of the top dogs, that does show that the jobbers, the mid-carders, their pay would not be that. It still would be good though, obviously, but yeah, I kind of actually did think the wrestlers would get paid like millions, to be fair, but apparently that's not the case.
This is obvious in
breaking the rules,
life, no matter where you are.
Okay.
If you blatantly break the rules, then you are likely going in the hot water. It's no different in the WWE, where you can expect heavy fines for breaking the rules. Ask Batista, who was fined $100,000 for blading in a cage match with Chris Jericho after the WWE had gone PG. Vince also fined Jericho, producer Dean Malenko, and referee Mike Chioda. Even if you're the biggest star in WWE history, you aren't immune to a fine. When Stone Cold Steve Austin left the company in 2002, McMahon was originally going to levy him with a $650,000 fine until the Rattlesnake brought it down to $250,000. Don't cross the boss, indeed. Lethal weapons.
That's crazy. Obviously they have rules, but what did Stone Cold actually do to get a $650K fine? The guy said there that's for him leaving in 2002. So did he leave like before his contract ended or something? I'm not too sure. But yeah, of course they do have rules. I know that they have this wellness policy that keeps getting brought up, like wrestlers keep getting suspended for breaking or violating the wellness policy. I'm not too sure what that is exactly, but Andrade got suspended recently, and I think Samoa Joe did as well. So yeah, that's a bit strange. I'm not too sure why or what that's about.
Not talking about you, but you do look adorable with that black piece on your head. No, what we're talking about is the actual weapons used for WWE shows. We're talking kendo sticks, chairs, ladders.
They look
VCRs.
lethal.
Okay, maybe that last one was ECW, but you get our point. Surprisingly enough, most of those weapons are completely real. The main weapons that are played with are tables and ladders, which makes sense as those objects need to be set up with precision. After all, those two things are needed for specific spots in the ladder matches and TLC matches. The most dangerous weapons are the rings itself and the outside, as there is little give to those floors. Taking the rings.
True.
Now,
okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, tables and ladders obviously would hurt going through, but they are set up to go through, so it would it hurt that much? I don't know. I kind of want to be put through a table, I'm not going to lie.
Counterintuitive, and in a way it is, but this is how the WWE functions. While it is true that the WWE relies heavily on its scripting, there is an element of the old school mentality that's still alive, and we're not talking about hazing. No, what we're talking about is Vince McMahon's open door policy. If you want to discuss your character or something about your storyline, and McMahon is in his office, you can go talk to him. A good example of this goes back to MVP. Yes, that MVP, the Power Ranger looking goof. His baller character was a little confusing for the senior citizen millionaire who thought it had to do exclusively with basketball. After explaining to Vince his character, it was more smooth sailing from there. Good thing he did, or else he would have to carry a basketball at all times.
Oh.
The answer you've been waiting for. The answer to the
here we
question
go.
from before is the gorilla position. This comes from WWE Hall of Famer Gorilla Monsoon, a former wrestler, commentator, and backstage manager from decades ago. The idea behind the position came from this legend, thus it was named in his honor. Well, that's it for our list.
Fair enough. But in regards to the last secret there, that wasn't too special, you know. If you're a wrestler and you want to talk about your character, you can go in to Vince McMahon's office, unless your name is Jonathan Good. Now, you'll know what I'm talking about here if you watched Jericho's podcast just when Dean Ambrose transformed into Jon Moxley and made his AEW debut. He would talk in that podcast about the fact that he would go into Vince McMahon's office every so often to try and like say that he's not happy with his character, he's not happy with what's going on, and he wants a change, but Vince McMahon just wasn't having it, and he didn't want Dean Ambrose to change. Obviously there's way more detail on that podcast, but that's like the basics there. So sometimes Vince will just not take your opinions, really. Like, whatever Vince wants, Vince will get. But that is it for 15 WWE secrets that you may have not known. I definitely knew some of them and elaborated on some of them, but there were also a few that I didn't know, so that's cool. There are other videos similar to this, so I could definitely do a part 2 and a part 3 I can see. So if you did enjoy this video and you want me to do another one similar, then make sure you slap a big juicy soggy Shrek looking like on the video for me. That was the most random thing I've ever said in my life, probably. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss another video from Scott Vance in the flesh. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will of course see you in the next video. Take care.